On this episode of the CyberWatch podcast, there are updates to software across the application and OS spectrum, new malicious campaigns are threatening victims of all sizes, and researchers have performed dissections on malware to give defenders new clues about just what it is they're fighting. All this today in CyberWatch. Hello, and welcome to the CyberWatch podcast for the week of November 17, 2024. This is your weekly roundup of the top cybersecurity news and analysis, curated by the analysts at Access Point Consulting. I'm your host, Curtis Franklin. Let's get to the news. While we here at the CyberWatch podcast will always urge companies to have a robust software update program in place, news from Microsoft about a recent update shows why simply saying yes to every update might not be the best idea. According to the company, October's Windows security updates break SSH connections on some Windows 11 22H2 and 23H2 systems. This issue affects enterprise, IoT, and education customers, but Microsoft says that only a limited number of devices are impacted. Apparently, some customers reported that the OpenSSH service fails to start following the update, meaning that secure connections weren't made. There's no fix as yet, though Microsoft has provided a PowerShell script to update permissions and provide a temporary workaround for the problem. Stay tuned for a more permanent repair in a future Patch Tuesday release. Staying in the Microsoft world, a malicious email campaign is using an Excel file to spread Remcos Rat, malware that can provide the criminal with complete remote access to the target computer. The initial email uses a fake purchase order to convince victims to open a file that launches an HTML application file that is, in reality, a loader for the RAT, or Remote Access Trojan. This is a multifunction, highly sophisticated campaign that involves fraud, data capture and exfiltration, and remote system control, among other terrible consequences. The only real protection is user education. And this is a good reminder that constant training and reinforcement are good things when it comes to system security. Of course, why would criminals use a boring old Excel file as a vehicle when online gaming apps are available to do the heavy lifting of infection and loading? That's what a new malware strain called WinOS 4.0 does, as it uses gaming installation and optimization tools to load a malicious framework onto targeted systems. The malware, which evolved from the infamous GhostRat, provides threat actors with a comprehensive functionality, stability, and control platform that gives them these controls over victim systems. Once resident on a system, WinOS 4.0 provides criminals with extensive capabilities for data gathering, including clipboard monitoring and system scans. As with the Remcos Rat campaign discussed a few minutes ago, there's no specific patch that will guard against WinOS 4.0. User training and intensive system monitoring are your best shots at defense. And don't think that spreadsheets and games are the only attack vectors of interest to malicious actors. A new piece of malware called StealFox is being used to mine cryptocurrency and steal credit card information. The threat vector represents itself as a crack tool that activates legitimate versions of various software, such as AutoCAD, Foxit PDF editor, or JetBrains. And let's be clear, it does do that. It just does so much more in addition. Once installed, the software beats the copy protection on applications and grants unfettered access to any resource and process on the target computer, and are the highest level of privilege on a local system, surpassing even the rights of a local administrator. Once there, the malware begins gathering payment information and surreptitiously mining cryptocurrency. So far, most instances of the malware have been seen in various developing nations, but there's nothing resident in the code to keep it away from Europe and North America. Finally, on the Microsoft front, if it's a month, it must be time to talk about Patch Tuesday. This month's patch list includes security updates for 89 flaws, including 4 0 days, 2 of which have been actively exploited. It also includes patches that fixed 4 critical vulnerabilities, which include 2 remote code execution and 2 elevation of privilege flaws. Overall, remote code execution was the most popular attack with 52 examples, followed by 26 privilege escalation issues. Information disclosure was, by contrast, the point of a single patched vulnerability. And Microsoft hasn't been the only company busy patching flaws in November. Adobe's Patch Tuesday included fixes for 48 flaws in applications, including its Commerce Application Suite and content creation applications like Photoshop, InDesign, After Effects, and Audition. Adobe suggests that customers update all applications as soon as possible. Not wanting to feel left out, Zoom issued a multi-vulnerability fixing update that addressed multiple vulnerabilities affecting its workplace apps, SDKs, and Rooms clients across all platforms. The vulnerabilities tended toward the privilege escalation and input validation sides of the malicious ledger. Zoom has released a patch for all the listed vulnerabilities and suggests that all users update their software immediately. Chrome has also been given its own set of updates, with Chrome 131 taking care of an even dozen flaws and vulnerabilities. The vulnerabilities include issues in media, accessibility, views, navigation, and autofill, plus a handful of previously existing flaws. Google has withheld details on some of the vulnerabilities to give users a chance to update their browsers, so take advantage of the opportunity. Update your copies of Chrome ASAP. Now, turning our attention away from software issues, there are new malicious campaigns to talk about this week. In the first, a fake email message threatening the victim with legal action for copyright infringement actually infects the victim with radamanthus, a sophisticated info stealer equally capable of pilfering high-value information like nation-state intelligence or cryptocurrency wallet passphrases. The message doesn't ask for money. It just, quite reasonably requests that the offending message or post or image be removed. Trouble is, details of the offending content are contained in an attached file, which is the vehicle for, you guessed it, malware. Radamanthus is considered the most sophisticated of the info stealers available for sale on the dark web. Its one telltale characteristic is its size. It's a very large file that, by that very size, escapes some malware scanning, but proves vulnerable to simple scans for new, very large files. And in more malware news, in late October, the Dutch National Police, alongside the FBI, Eurojust, and other law enforcement organizations, took down the Redline Stealer malware as a service operation, along with a clone called MetaStealer. Redline Stealer had been around since 2020, operating on a malware as a service model in which anyone could buy a turnkey info stealer solution from various online forums and Telegram channels. Clients, called affiliates, could opt for a monthly subscription or a lifetime license. In exchange for their money, they got a control panel that generated malware samples and acted as a control and communication server. While law enforcement has hit Redline Stealer hard, this highly distributed, very commercial model has turned the malware into an international service with global distribution and operational backends. While international law enforcement agencies have had success with this malware as a service operation, Redline Stealer is an example of just why why complete victory against malicious software is such a very difficult proposition. And the difficulty in bringing malicious actors to justice makes supply chain attacks that much more dangerous. In the first of those brought to you this week, Landmark Admin, a third-party administrator for life insurance and annuity companies, announced a data breach affecting more than 800,000 Liberty Bankers Insurance Group policyholders. The breach, which was discovered in mid-May of this year, likely resulted in sensitive data exfiltration. The stolen data includes names, addresses, social security numbers, financial account numbers, and medical information. Landmark Admin provides services for a number of other insurance companies as well, and is still in the process of forensically analyzing the breach. The in-process status, though, hasn't kept 2 class action lawsuits so far from being brought on behalf of Liberty Bankers customers. Finally, law firm Thompson Coburn announced a data breach affecting more than 300,000 patients of Presbyterian Healthcare. The New Mexico-based healthcare organization said that the compromised information includes patient's name, social security number, date of birth, medical record number, patient account number, prescription or treatment information, medical provider information, clinical data, and health insurance information. The firm has offered free credit monitoring and identity theft protection services to the affected patients, though it says there's no indication so far of identity theft or financial loss. The advice from analysts is similar to the advice most often offered in similar cases: education, multi-factor authentication, and encrypted data both at rest and in transit. This combination of defensive tactics should provide significant protection against breaches like this and help keep supply chain participants out of the news and courtrooms. Well, that's it for this week. Please join us again next week for the CyberWatch podcast, brought to you by Access Point Consulting. And be sure to visit CyberWatch on LinkedIn and at www.accesspointconsulting.com. And follow us or subscribe on Instagram, Spotify, and YouTube. I'm Curtis Franklin. We'll see you next week.